So is the genie of hate now sparking off another bout of communal violence? That's the question we are raising. My first guest is Asaduddin Owaisi, the AIMIM MP, joins me. Appreciate your joining us, Mr. Owaisi. You have come out very strongly against what has happened in the railway compartment, the cold-blooded murder of 4 people, and then what's happened in New Hindu-Muslim violence. Let's get it clear. You have called the railway compartment incident a terror attack. Have you jumped the gun? Because the FIR is very clear. It says there is no communal angle. At least no communal angle is specifically mentioned in the FIR. Should one be more cautious in the times in which we live before suggesting it is a communal crime?
The reason I have called it a terror attack is because this was a man who was in uniform, and he had first assassinated or murdered his superior AS officer who belonged to the tribal Meena community. Then he went into 3 different railway compartments and identified Muslims who were having beard or wearing a cap, and then shot them dead. In fact, there is a video still available wherein this man who he shot, who's cringing in pain, who's turning from right side to left side, subsequently he died. Unfortunately, he's from Hyderabad, a place called Bazar Ghat. So this man went around 3 compartments of the railways, identified Muslims with their attire or with their beard, and shot them dead. And in a video he says that is desh mein rehna hai to Yogi, Modi or Thackeray. Now, unfortunately, the government of India wanted the Twitter to remove my tweet, and unfortunately the Twitter had succumbed to the government pressure tactics, and that tweet of mine has been removed from, it cannot be seen in India.
No, that is because again these are very sensitive. No, Mr. Owaisi, that's because these are very sensitive issues. You know, this is clearly a killing that needs investigation. No one doubts about it. It could well be a hate crime. You could be right that it could be a hate crime. The only point is, in the times in which we live, one has to be a little cautious. That's all I'm saying.
Well, Rajdeep, whatever times we live in, we have to say the truth clearly and loudly without mincing words. I will reiterate again that it was a terror attack done by a person who was radicalized and who had become extremist because of the conducive atmosphere of radicalization and extremism that has been created by the ruling party in last 9 years. And that is why we see that this man has no fear. He's standing at a dead body with his licensed weapon, as if he has, the human corpse which is lying on his feet is like some sort of a trophy for him. And everyone in that compartment just sits quiet. So it is a deliberate terror attack. To call it a hate crime would be understatement. To call him a madman would be completely wrong. He was in his senses, and that is why first he assassinated his ASI from the tribal community, and then went on to 3 different compartments and shot Muslims.
Mr. Owaisi, you know, I don't want to engage at one level in whataboutery. Every crime is dastardly, but let's be clear. You might recall last year, just over a year ago, 28 June 2022 in Udaipur, Kanhaiya Lal Teli, a Hindu tailor, was murdered by 2 Muslim assailants. Now, let's be very clear. Do you also see that as a terror attack, or will that be called a hate crime? Let's be clear. Whether what happens in Udaipur or what happened in the railway compartment, we have to unequivocally condemn it, Mr. Owaisi. Are we very clear? If someone makes Sar Tan Ke Juda slogans and threatens to kill people, unacceptable. Are we clear on that?
Well, people who had assassinated Kanhaiya Lal are terrorists. No 2 things about it. I have said this at that time also, I am saying it now. My question is that if Kanhaiya Lal was assassinated, was murdered in a brutal way, The Rajasthan Congress government had given 50, but that same empathy was. Junaid and Nasir were also kidnapped by the Rakshaks, but they are terrorists. They kidnapped them, took them to death. And you know what the great security, the chief minister gave them only 5 lakhs. Over here, that even in death.
Let's be clear, whether there's cold-blooded killing in Bhiwani, whether it is what happened in Udaipur, or whether it is yesterday, we are very clear these are all acts of terror. Right? We're clear on that. These are unacceptable. You will raise your voice as strongly as you would whether the victim is a Hindu or a Muslim.
Well, Rajdeep, you know, when people indulge in terrorism, I would say that terrorism has become the new religion. And all these people, they camouflage their brutalness, they camouflage their animalistic behavior by giving it a religious color. And this is what we had seen, which was done by the RPF person who was radicalized, who became extreme in his views, and the same thing happened to, unfortunately, to Kanhaiya Lal also, and to Junaid and Nasir.
But do you believe that the genie of hate is out of the bottle, and controlling it is now going to be virtually impossible? And to some extent, not just the political class, we could even look at the media, all of whom seem to be aiding in this polarized atmosphere. We've seen what's happened in Haryana, in Nuh. You've got a procession taking place, then you have a stone pelting, cars are set on fire, and people have died. Let's be very clear. When there are clashes, communal clashes taking place in Nuh, when you've got the incident in the train, all of which builds up to the fact that we are entering a very dangerous polarized world.
Well, Rajdeep, I am sorry to disappoint you that we have already entered into this domain of uncertainty, into domain of hate from last 9 years. It is the state which is actively promoting, which is the state which has created this conducive atmosphere of hatred for Muslims and Christians and Dalits. It is the state which helps these perpetrators, and it is the state which did not take any action against the hate speeches that emanated from the so-called Dharam Sansad. But for the Supreme Court intervention, no FIRs would have been even booked against them. Let me give an example of your home state of Maharashtra. 50 so-called love jihad public meetings were held in the presence of ministers of the Maharashtra ruling party. Everywhere it is happening, so it is not happening right now.
So when an
violence has to be condemned.
When an Akbaruddin Owaisi also is accused of hate speech, I hope that you will also take up the issue even against your own brother. Anyone who tries to play to identity politics eventually only helps in polarization, Mr. Owaisi. That is the reality. Let's get real about it.
Well, let me again correct you. Your facts are completely wrong. You should tell your team to do their homework properly. Mr. Akbaruddin Owaisi, after giving that speech, which he was subsequently exonerated by courts of law, did go to the prison despite being in immense pain, despite fainting 4 or 5 times in the jail, despite his life was a very risky position in the jail. For 45 days he was in jail. Now the courts have exonerated him. So don't compare Mr. Akbaruddin Owaisi's case with what is happening in these hate speeches which are we seeing in Maharashtra and in so-called Dharam Sansads. How many of them have gone to prison? How many of them have faced the music of the law? So I have to correct you. You are quoting wrong facts, and I have quoted you the true facts. The problem is
you're very clear. You're very clear. So anyone who under the law commits the crime of hate speech should be prosecuted and put in jail. The point I'm making is that we've reached a stage, Mr. Owaisi, where the only way you can control this genie of hate which is out of the bottle is by taking tough action on anyone who takes the law into the hands, whether it is someone who resorts to violence in New or whether it is in that railway compartment. We have to be very clear now. Whether you are anyone who takes a life of an innocent in the name of religion will have to be given exemplary punishment.
Well, it is the selective implementation of the law. BJP can talk about uniformity, uniform civil code, but they do not want to impose the law uniformly. That is the main problem. The biggest work which the BJP can do is to implement rule of law. Why is the BJP eulogizing, why is the BJP promoting this culture of Goli Maro? Why is BJP taking credit for someone shooting an ex-MP, a convicted ex-MP who was in handcuffs in the police custody? Who's celebrating all these incidents? Why is it that in Madhya Pradesh, a Muslim three-story house was demolished by a bulldozer, and you know what happened? A band was played in front of his house while his three-story building was being demolished. Who's promoting all this? It is the state, it is the BJP which is the ruling party. Now if the state compromises and forgets rule of law, but wants to govern on the basis of rule by gun, then what will happen to the constitution? What will happen to the rule of law? What will happen to fairness? What will happen to propriety, reasonableness? It will all be finished.
So the larger point you're making is impunity is stemming, you believe, from a state that has become partisan. All these years we've been told of minority appeasement and the impact that has had on the majority. Today you're turning around and telling me it's about majority appeasement and a partisan state that is responsible in a way for a reaction from the minority. But let's be clear, action and reaction both have to be condemned.
Well, I am not talking about action and reaction. I am saying that the government of the day has no religion. The government of the day has to follow the rule of law, implement the rule of law. The government of the day cannot get blinded by their ideology. The government of the day must implement the constitution in toto. What we are seeing is that the government closes their eyes when if their own ideological creatures indulge in violence. That is the problem. Who has radicalized these people? How is it that they have become so much extreme in their views?
So there with due regard, there is radicalization within a section of Hindutva forces, there is radicalization within a section of Islamist forces. Let's be very clear about this today, that we have to condemn it all. Unacceptable.
Rajdeep, do you know that in the Ministry of Home Affairs, there is a counter-radicalization department, and that counter-radicalization department only deals with Muslims and Islam, no other religion. There is no other monitoring of radicalization in the majority community. There is no other monitoring of radicalization among various so-called all these radical majoritarian groups which have emerged. Only counter. I have asked this question in Parliament. I have demanded, please have a counter-radicalization monitoring unit for every religion. Can the government of the day come out and say that they are doing it? No, they are not doing it.
Let's leave it there, Mr. Owaisi. I think what you pointed out, you've sort of given your viewpoint very strongly as ever to your belief that the state has turned partisan and therefore the state is partly responsible for spreading the genie of hate, as we are calling it. Appreciate your joining us, Asaduddin Owaisi, here on the show today.
Thank you.